the plan is yours. I don't know what else you want from me. Here's the blueprint here. It's also, I have the whole blueprint right in front of me.
Look at that.
And you know who is that? So that's who's the best, huh? I think this is also yours, isn't it? I think this stick-off is yours too. I'm not sure. Job one. I'm not sure if it's yours or one of the what we did last year. Okay. So feel free to come and erase this one for you.
Well, first of all, everyone in my business. If you guys have any questions, you can always call us. Not me.
You.
I don't know AccuBid down to the core, but I know it enough where I can do all my own takeoffs and everything like that. I'm sure at Parsons you guys probably have an AccuBid guru that, that's what I'm guessing. Probably somebody that knows it, like they're like programmers, they're not really takeoff people.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we got too. They know how to do takeoffs and stuff like that. But if you have like real crazy in-depth questions on AccuBid, they're the people to go to. Well, otherwise, if you have a question, shoot me an email or give me a call or anything like that. It's no big deal. So I just want to go around the room and get your guys' experience quick, so I kind of know what I'm dealing with. That's it. Just talk about yourself a little bit.
In this, I guess pretty much I did a zero electrical background, so they're all graduating in May. I actually have one semester left because I've taken one semester of basic, and then joined this class, so I just have to finish that up. So I'm in before this. Yep.
What were you doing before this?
Just working at a restaurant.
Okay. I remember you.
Yeah, I graduated from the construction side last May. Ready for this year, for the design, currently looking for a job.
So did you get out in the field and actually wire stuff
Yeah,
up?
I worked for Parsons as pre-apprentice.
Did you? How'd you like that?
It's good for staying on the job, but I dug a trench.
Yeah. That's what pre-apprentices are for. How about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any real experience. I just did labor when I started here, so, but I've used Accident a little bit of work already, so I've kind of started on the estimating for Parsons.
Is that what you do? Is you work for the estimating group?
No, I'm a project engineer there, so I kind of support the project manager. I do kind of everything.
You guys work on bigger projects? You work on the bigger projects?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So project engineers, they all got the same terms. Assistant project managers and assistant, so similar to what I do.
Yeah.
Except for me, I don't know if you guys have this. I think you do because I've met a lot of Parsons guys at walkthroughs.
Mm-hmm.
My group works on a lot of smaller projects or owner direct stuff. Where our big group is the pre-construction group, estimating, and then construction. So they'll estimate it, they win the job, and then they hand it over to the construction guys, and then they project manage it.
Yeah, and that's kind of like we do kind of the same thing. Some of our pre-construction work with project managers, their multi-project, buying and purchasing or anything like that too. So, but yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing. So.
You get sucked into the stadium?
No, I'm actually working at a hospital in Akron.
Okay.
So.
Who's that for? What healthcare provider? What healthcare provider?
I'm not even sure. It's Akron Children's Hospital in Ohio. So.
Oh, okay, sure. All right. I know I do a lot of work at the line on Parsons and Hunt's always there bidding against me. So.
You guys do any UHG?
I don't know.
No?
The other groups might. I don't know.
Okay.
Are you in the back? Okay. All right. So do you have any experience with doing this stuff? Your two jobs right now or not? Okay. All right. That's what I was trying to go with. Okay. So we got a mix. So Hunt came in and already walked you guys through a lot of stuff. Do you guys have any questions on that? I kind of want to keep it open, so if you're going and there's a question, just bring it up. Feel free to start talking. Like, I'm not very formal. I was grabbing all my formal stuff last night and I just threw it. It's not really. I got all these books and I never even opened them, so it's not how I like to do it. I don't know if you guys are different or not, but So what I'll do is I'll just kind of walk through. I won't save this so you can keep all your information up. But usually when I start my takeoff, I'll get my drawings. You guys don't have, do you guys have live count on here? Okay.
Could be with the software, but I'm not sure we'll use it.
I think it's an extra, so they probably, yeah. Because you guys get this straight from AccuBid.
Yeah, we could have it though.
It's almost like McCormick when we were using the wheel and stuff. It's almost like that.
Zip code screen.
Yep, it's all on screen and you just click it but it's just the same as wheeling it off on here. So usually when I get the bid package, I'll go through, I kind of skim through what's what. I typically pull up my electrical prints right away. The very first thing I do is I take off my fixtures. The reason being is because you got to get quotes. And you guys will learn fixtures are the bane of our industry. So you want to get those quotes out right away. You want to be very specific. Typically what I do when I send out my quotes is I'll get my counts, and then I like to send typically the specs, the lighting page, and mostly the fixture schedule to the reps. That way they're all even keeled and they can't come back and say, well, I never see, it helps eliminate the finger pointing. And
When you say the lighting page, you mean the lighting sheet?
yeah, that, or sometimes the page that will have let's see, where is it? The actual fixtures on there.
The layout.
The layout, yep.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
But you got to put in the schedule. Yep, the lighting schedule.
Gotcha.
Sometimes if there's smaller jobs, I'll just throw it all in there. That way they have it, they can thumb through it. Because it's gonna happen where you're gonna come back and you're gonna see, oh, this one's $10,000 cheaper, I'm gonna use them, and then you get the job and you start buying the stuff and you're like, oh crap, this is nothing what I need. And then it goes to the finger pointing and it becomes a big huge mess. And so I try to give them everything up front, just like the engineer tries to give us everything up front. It's just more of a liability issue. So just that's a good habit to get into. So right away, I mean, you obviously took off your counts. You're going through and you're ticking them, with the clicker or whatever, doing whatever you do. Live count. You guys use AccuBid at Parsons, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys probably use live count too.
I don't, but there are a couple of YouTube.
Yeah. It's the same thing. You're just doing it online. I'll talk about the fixtures a little bit when I build a fixture. I don't know how in depth they went, but let's just make one right now. So I'll come into the lighting page and it'll be a 2x4 recessed lens trough or something like that. So I'll go into my fluorescent fixtures, recessed.
Joe, I have a question for you. What do you do? All ours were LEDs, and we don't have an LED here. So what do you do?
The LED labor and the fluorescent labor is
Okay, so
really
we just
close.
use it, okay.
Yep.
That's
So,
what we did.
and a lot of times, here's the other thing. You get in the industry, you'll find people that are they have to have every nut and every bolt and every screw, and there's some guys that are like, close enough. You'll find differences, and it's kind of who you work with and how you mold into your career. There's a lot of guys I work with that won't even really look at this. They'll just look at the prints, they'll thumb through and be like, oh, $30,000. They're just that good at it, So what you're trying to do here, and even our database isn't 100% accurate. You're just trying to cover what the labor is. And again, it's an estimate. It's not going to be science. It's an estimate. You don't know what's going to happen. Oh, and the other thing, if you can go to the site, go to the site. Especially, I do a lot of tenant build-outs. Go to the site, pop your head up in the ceiling, look around. If you go to the mall and do any mall build-outs, walk around the corridors in the back, because all that stuff won't be on here, but it can really ruin your day quickly. It's just easier. For me, if I go look at a space, I can kind of close my eyes and visualize how it's going to look, and it helps me take off, start figuring the estimate. But anyway, so we get back. Typically when I'm doing my fixtures at work, we have pre-assemblies made, and I just click on one of those. I'll do like type A, 2x4, and I already got one set. It's, an hour or something like that, or an hour 1.25 or whatever it is. If it's an LED or not, they're both the same. Usually like a 6-foot whip, box maybe sometimes, things like that. So that's usually what I'll do is I'll just grab one of these. We'll just say drop in T-bar, so it goes into the grid. We'll add that. Why is I don't know what you guys have in here for this. Here we go. And the other thing too is, for me, I know typically what happens is the customer will call and say, "Hey, we're going to do a space build out. Can I have a quote today?" So you got to be really quick. And the biggest thing is learning where stuff is. This DB Find, when I first started, I used this for everything. And it's kind of specific. You just type in whatever you're looking for, you know, wire. And it's going to pull up all the wire throughout the whole database. Because again, that's the biggest thing. Obviously, wire is pretty vague, and there's going to be 10 million things, but DB Find. So in here, let's see, we have a fluorescent lay-in, MC, no support, drop wire, jack chain, we'll probably use drop wire. 2x4, 4 lamp typically, T-bar, not 14.2. No, I got that twice, I'm going to delete it. Oh, come on, delete this one. Now I have my fixture built. This is probably something you guys did earlier, something similar to this. Okay. Do you guys have any questions on that?
No, he kind of went over it.
Okay.
And the wire that comes with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's not, I know some guys want to have the exact, I need 6.5 feet and three washers and 4 screws. At the end of the day, it's usually going to take about an hour, or you see here it says 1.14 or 1.48. I would say a 2x4 is around an hour, 1.25, something like that to install. So that's what you're trying to get at, is to cover those. The material here, this is going to change your guys' database. Like for us, ours gets updated once a month, I think. Yeah, typically about once a month, we'll get our vendors to send us pricing updates. And then Dan will go in there and update it. And we have to re-extend, pull out, and stuff like that. So the material, this material dollar is not covering the fixture cost. This is just the wire, the screws, all that stuff. So don't forget to make sure you add that in. Sometimes on smaller jobs, right in here, if I only have like 5 fixtures and I know they're $100 a piece, instead of calling and getting quotes, because even my vendors will give me, I have, you know, 6 of these things stapled to my desk, and I just grab it quick and I go, okay, 2x4 fixtures, $89. And if I got 5 of them, I'll just type $89 in here. If it's a bigger job like this, get quotes, because again, fixtures are goofy. Some of these fixtures they spec out, it looks on paper that it's just a can light, but it turns out it's a $600 can light. But, you know, the labor is going to be the exact same, it's just fixtures are goofy. So that's what I do first. Once I take off my fixtures, I'll open an email. Usually what I do is I'll just copy this, right click copy, go right into email, paste, attach my sheets, and then I do like a mass email, you know, cover all of them so they don't see who's who. And then I just send that off and, hey, can you give me a quote? Usually what they want to know is, when is it due? So I always try to add that in there. Hey, I have to turn my bid in at noon. Can you please give me this the day before? If you have any questions, call me. And I send it off. And typically, once you get into it more and you start learning the vendors, you'll find ones that you like working with, ones that are more reliable. So I usually use just a couple, and I send them every single time. And the only reason why I don't stick with just one is because they're all like this all the time. So that's the first thing I do. The gear, I never really, I mean, I've been taught how to do this, but typically what I do when I get with the gear, and again, that would be something first because you want to get quotes on that. I usually go to common assemblies, distribution. Again, for my, what's that?
You build them right here, okay.
Well, a lot of them are already built. So like, again, for me, typically, my jobs are like $150,000, so it's not very big. So it'll be a couple 120 volt panels, maybe, you know, a 480 panel. That's about it. So I just go into panels. You know, here's a 225 amp panel, 42 circuit. There's some anchors and there's some screws. So this will cover And again, this dollar amount there does not cover the cost of the panel and whatnot. This is just mostly for these two things right here. What this is in there for is to cover this, which is the most important.
Now, Joe, how do you know that this is never only on material?
Well, it's got both, but I know that panels you got to get a quote on.
Even when you pick them up as an assembly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We have some prices in ours. Well, no, we don't. We don't have prices in ours. I can go in the extension and say, all right, I know if I'm doing something quick and they just want one 200 amp panel, aluminum, a couple $100, I'm good. You know, but if they're ordering,
So all the gear, panels, MCC, switch gear,
Send quotes.
generator, even if you take them as an assembly, it wouldn't assign a dollar value for it.
no, ours doesn't, and I don't think yours does too. It shouldn't be set up that way. They do that. They do that because it forces you to make sure you get a quote. But don't forget, because you don't want to get $20,000 you forgot to do because you thought it was buried in here. So it's important. I'll get to the extension here in a little bit. Another thing that I like to add on breakers is I don't really add the breaker itself. I don't know if you guys have them here for something we made, but here we go. Terminations. So I got some 20 amp breakers, you know, maybe some 30 amps, and so on. I'll add some of these. And what this covers is for the guy to go in there and make sure that the breakers are tight and stuff like that. Typically, when you get your panels, they'll come assembled. A lot of times you're going to have to make some manipulations, move them around, do whatever you got to do.
So the breakers will come with the price of the panel.
If you specify it.
Okay.
But it's going to be cheaper. If you want to buy, and here's a little secret too, if you want to buy breakers, and let's say you need 10 20 amp breakers, if you just ask the vendor, I need 10 20 amp breakers, he's going to charge you up the butt for them. But if you say, put these 10 20 amp breakers in a 200 amp panel, it's going to be probably like half the price. And then you just throw the panel away. So it's just, I don't know why they do that. And they all joke about it because they all know. Just throwing it out there. But this, I throw terminations in there just to kind of cover some of that stuff. You know, and I'll monkey around with it and kind of get a feel. A lot of times, too, it depends on who your foreman is, who's installing it. Typically, I'll have 1 or 2 guys. I kind of have a good feel of how they're going to work, how fast they work, how slow they work. Everybody's a little different. So if I know, all right, I got so-and-so on the job, he's not very good at this sort of stuff, but he's great at this, then I kind of tweak my numbers a little bit. And if you're in big pre-construction stuff, you don't really know who's going to be on the job, so that's kind of hard, and you kind of just want to keep it even keel. And then it's up to the project manager to make sure that it works right. But again, I always throw these terminations in. Our pre-assemblies have them built in there, and it's got like a whole list, and I just go through and add what I want. If I know they're all 20 amp breakers and a 200 amp panel, I'll just throw like 42. Some guys want to put 84 and they figure a termination for hot and neutral. I do just 42, or maybe I'll just throw 10. Again, it kind of varies. Is it a really aggressive job? You know, then I might not load that up as much as I would. Is it a small job where it's just in and out? I might put all of that in there. So it all varies. And that's sort of stuff that you learn as you go. You kind of get the feel for it. And again, that goes back to guys that have been doing this for 20 years can just look at prints and tell you how much it's going to cost. That's typically how I take off my panels. Let's see. Disconnect, same thing. You know, these ones, yep, they got fuses in there. You know, and even if this isn't the exact fuse. Now this should cover all of this stuff. But you gotta be careful though, because if you do get a quote on that, you don't want to double up on your prices. You know what I mean? And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll ask for a quote on my disconnect, and I'll tell them what breakers I need or fuses, and they'll give me that in the quote. Or a lot of times they'll throw them in for free, depending on what it is. Again, what I'm trying to get after here is more of the labor, so I know how much it's going to take for a guy to do this. You can also add, if you know this disconnect's going to be up on a roof or something and you got to build some sort of rack, a lot of times I'll come in, let's see, just a box. This is going off of there. I don't know if, well, here we go. Let's say this disconnect's hung from the ceiling, and they're putting some sort of heat return or something like that up there, and you need a disconnect at it. Basically, what I just threw in there was enough material and labor to cover a guy to go up there, screw that to the deck, and Because if you're just mounting it on the wall, it's going to be a lot different if you're mounting it up on the deck. Or if you're building some sort of strut rack, there should be. I don't know if you guys have that here. Yeah, there's nothing much. I mean, ours has like a sort of a strut rack pre-assembly. Again, all that's doing is typically the material's pretty small, the dollar amount, but you're trying to go after the labor. Just for doing that, I think this should probably be higher. But again, this is what AccuBid does is they throw out a mass program to everybody, and then what it is up to that company to go in and tweak those numbers. That's why a lot of people are really nervous about that, because this is our trade secret. Basically, what we do is we go out of the NECA labor manual. That's what we do. That's what Dan has done. If we were going to add something new to the assembly or something, Dan will just do that. So again, that's what I use for here. I'm just going to take this off and see where it lands. Here it is. So yep, they're covering $350 here with a 25% discount on it, and so your total material is $263. If I put that in on my quotes, I want to make sure I go in here and just, yep, because I don't want to get doubled up on it. Or if I forgot to and then I won the job, well, then I just made off with an extra few bucks. But that's just something you need to keep an eye out for. I'm going to delete this off of here.
Now, Joe, if you deleted it in the extension, can you bring it back?
If I delete
Or
it,
you have to go back again and retake it?
if I delete it here, I can.
No, look, when you put the extension.
Oh, no.
Exactly what you did.
No, it's gone.
So if you will know, if you made a mistake, you have to delete it in the extension, retake it one more time.
If I took the dollars out, and
Yep.
then I can't remember what the dollars were yet. Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. There may be like some sort of secret handshake that you shake the computer and it does it, but if you take it off on here, you click on this button
Yeah.
and you can retake any of these off as they are.
Undelete, yeah.
Yep. And this, I always hide mine too, just because I want to keep my audit trail shorter. So that's the first thing I do, is I send those out for quotes, because a lot of times, really, it should only take them a half an hour, but you just send it to them, get it to them right away, and then the next thing I do, I see you guys kind of got everything set up. I tie in my drawings, and a lot of times this is really helpful if you're using live count, because it links this to live count. It knows what page is what, and so what you're taking off. If you don't have the right page set up and you start trying to take something off, it goes to live count and go to the previous page. So you're like, oh crap, I gotta change that. It just kind of helps. And other times too, a lot of people want their bids broken out. How much is it going to cost here? How much is it going to cost there? It's easier to do up front than try to go back and redo it. And it doesn't take long to set this up. You guys have any questions on that? Same thing with the area, the phase. The big one that I like to do is the alternate, just like this. Because 9 times out of 10, there's 16 different alternates on a bid. And the best way to do that is here. So we have our base bid, and then we have our mechanical bid. When I got that set off, I do my takeoff. I go to breakdown. Then I'll go to bid item. Reload it. Oh, we don't have anything taken off there. Here, let's do this. Just refresh it. And then there's my breakdown right there. So then when I write my letter, indirect labor, total hours. This is set up differently. I'll have a total column here. And then what happens is it adds it up down here, so I know, all right, my total bid is $300,000, and then I can see up in this column, 225 of it is for a base bid, and whatever is for the alternate. And if you forgot to, I seen that you guys right here set these up. If you forgot to set those up and allocate them to the right area, it'll give you, this will be red down here, so you'll know, oh shoot, I forgot to allocate that. So that's the big one that I use is the alternate. Just so, and then I start doing my takeoff. I'll start looking at what I like to do is I go through and I take off receptacles. Again,
You always start with assembly, common assemblies.
I do. It's quicker, it's easier. Again, yep. A lot of stuff isn't in assembly, so then you got to go into the database and kind of build stuff. Yep. So for my receptacles, 20 amp, let's see, 15 and 20 amp.
Use the MC cable recess.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, how come I'm not seeing that?
MC cable right there.
Right here?
Yeah, MC cable flush and so it's one, yeah.
Okay.
These are 15, the 20 is.
Yep. Wood frame.
And then metal frame.
Yep. Everything in commercials, metal studs. One thing, since I've been working in the hospitals more and more, I got to keep an eye out, is you have to use hospital grade MC for most of the hospital. It's a little more expensive. Anything on emergency, you have to use hospital grade receptacles.
There's like a 70% difference.
Yep.
What's the difference in that though?
There's and I just found this out because I didn't know. I was kind of going with it, but I was actually told, we broke down some books. There is an MC cable. It's armor clad, and a lot of times you ground to that.
Yeah.
They want redundant grounding. So there's that other ground. So there's the ground that goes in there, and then there's another piece of metal that sheets through all the way through it. So you ground both of them. It just limits shock or anything like that. It's just a redundancy.
Okay.
They don't want anything to happen with their equipment to short it out, or they don't want somebody sick and hurt and then have a failure like that.
Redundancy in the ground.
Yeah.
I was working with that yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Part of our estimate were like hospital grade MC.
Yeah, it's more expensive, and
Yeah, here's what they look like. They have that little dot.
yep, that will be the receptacles. That will be on the life safety stuff, and a lot of times life safety, then you have to put in pipe. When you get into hospitals, make sure you read all the specs. In the code book, there's a huge chunk that's specifically for hospitals. They're a little different, and it all gets back to patient safety. That's, they don't want somebody hooked up to a machine that's keeping them alive and some sort of failure, and it's basically just redundant, and that's why they do it that way. So I'll take these off. I got 20 of them. I'll click on the assembly, type in 20. I don't know if you guys have any in here. We'll just go like this. Oops. This is a quad box. We only want one. My count will say 20. Now this, if you're doing a real big job, I would say as a project manager, you might want to send, after the job has been won, you can send this stuff out for quotes and try to get it down cheaper. But if you're just taking it off, just use what's in here. I'd assume that your company that you work for has a good database and they're keeping that up to date, because that's the lifeline basically. And then you get your labor hours. You come through here and just see what's on here. Sometimes I usually just leave all this stuff alone.
And these material dollars and hours, you can go ahead and change it right here, right?
I don't think you can change them here.
Can you change them in these areas?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
You have to go to the extension.
Yep, or the database, but we're not going to monkey around with it. No. And usually there's only one person that has access to the database, one or two, like our purchasing manager and Dan are the only two. I have some access to it, but I just stay away. But yeah, if you know you're going to get, like right here, you got $5. I can tell that because it's blue, you changed it. So maybe you got a whole bunch of extra wire in the back and you plan on using it for this job. and it's an aggressive bid, and so you want to try to get an advantage over somebody else. The discount here, this is the database, the AccuBid kind of vague one. It'll change, depending on what you guys have in there for your for what you get from your vendors. So let me go back. So I'll take off the receptacles, kind of go through there. Typically, I don't do the data, but for us, we typically will do the stub ups or ring and strings. So I'll do that because that's a lot of times on the same page. If I do have to get a data quote, that's the other thing. Fire alarm data, any saw cutting, right away I try to send that out for quotes too, and that I just send them everything. Here, you dig through it, tell me what you're going to cost. Try to get that out right away, and a lot of times you'll find one or two vendors that you like to use. I know for us, we're kind of fortunate, and Parsons is too, where we have a lot of in-house stuff, so I can just walk down the hallway and say, hey, what are you going to charge me for this? Or I'll call like LVC or somebody and they'll give me a quote. Or a lot of times, if it's simple fire alarm stuff, a small job, a lot of times I'll just have my electrician do it, and I'll just call like Simplex or whoever, and they'll supply me the material, and then my electrician will be the installer. They're more expensive than a normal installer, but a lot of that's owner direct, and they have 5 things to do, so it's easier just to have my electrician go do it rather than try to drag up a low voltage guy to do it. So yeah, that's that. I just go through, I get my lights taken off, go through, get my switches. I use common assembly on all my switches. Dimmers and stuff like that, what I like to do is I will just grab something like this.
And Joe, do you take your devices with wire or?
Yep.
Okay, so each one of them come like with 20 feet or 18 or whatever.
And this goes back to depending on the person.
Okay.
Some people want you to wheel off every little run, and some people are the law of average. I'm a law of average guy, so if I know I got 20 feet, 20 switches, well, I know, 15 of them are going to be 15 feet, and then it kind of balances itself out in the middle. Some guys want to be very specific, so you kind of got to know who you're working with and what kind of person you are. There's no right or wrong way. Again, it's an estimate.
Well, it helps too, like when you do the assemblies, like if you pick a device and like a 20-foot component, and then you can just put the
Yep.
J-box in.
Yep. Yep, exactly. That's what I do. That's what I do. And again, I've had guys where they're like, no, you can't do that. You have to wheel off every little piece. And at the end of the day, it's like 5 feet difference. It's just I spent an extra hour doing that. So
So what you wheel is from the ceiling into the panel.
or if they go, from receptacle to receptacle, because they'll just bring that through the wall. If it's old work, then I drop and put a box up here and string down, fish down. So it's, again, I might come in,
That 18 feet could go from here to here too.
right, and it gives me extra.
Because on the other side.
Because on the next one, it might be 22 feet. And that's where I'm kind of the law of average guy, where it kind of balances itself out. Everybody's a little different. For my switches, a lot of times too, you're getting more and more dimmers. The new AshRay or the new that's coming out, I think in July. We had, was it Pulse came in and talked to us. They gave us a really nice class on that. And I know that we talked about it last year. I'm sure you guys talked about how stringent they are. And they're really going to start pushing that. So you're going to see a lot more dimmers. What I do, we don't have a dimmer assembly. So what I do is I'll grab this. It's just a single pole switch. It's got my box. It's got my wire. It's got all my stuff on there. I go into the database and I will find.
But you use under, I thought there was something under this system.
Yep, right here. Like ours will have, I think ours has Hubble, and they kind of get more specific. Again, it's kind of tricky. Make sure you read your specs. There's some when it comes to these LEDs that have to be, I think it's like 0 to 10% dimming. Then other ones are like 0 to 1% or something, and there's a huge price difference between the two. I can't remember which one is which. I always send that to my lighting rep and say, tell me which one you need, and will you price those out for me? I've X them out. Because I've been burned on that before, where these LED drivers have to have a certain dimmer, and that dimmer could be between $10 and $100, and if you have 100 of them, that's a lot of money. So kind of be careful of that. Dimmers themselves for labor, all about the same. So I'll just grab something like this. Here's a wall switch, you know, one of the push button ones. If that's all they want, I'll just grab that, throw that down here, and then I just come up to here and I just delete this.
I see.
Because I think the labor for this is a little bit higher. It should be a little bit higher. Then it kind of covers me there. If you forgot it and at least you have a switch in there, you're kind of covered. I try to get a little more specific because, again, you're starting to see more and more dimmers. I'm sure eventually when it gets to that point, we'll probably build an assembly with dimmers in them, but for right now, we don't. I'm sure a lot of people don't. Same with, well, oh, this is dimming, I'm sorry. Dimmers or occupancy sensors. They're kind of all one and the same. But again, I would send those off to your lighting rep and say, hey, I have these LED lights or these fluorescent lights and they want these, you know, sensors. Can you please tell me which ones I need? Because the lighting reps know lights inside and out, and they'll tell you what you need. What else do I do? Let's see. I'm just going to thumb through this, get my head wrapped around it. Mechanical equipment. So we can go into there next. And again, as we're going, I also try to do this, break it down per whatever it is, bid item. Again, if you're just doing a quick small tenant build out or, you know, a line for Courage, Kenny will call me directly and say, hey, come down here, we need these 10 lights. Then I don't really do that. I just want to give them a price as fast as I can. But yeah, I would say try to get in the habit of it. The more you do it, the more it just kind of becomes second nature. So mechanical equipment, I would read it, but a lot of times the motors and stuff like that, they'll put a motorized damper, and usually it's like a 120 volt coming in. We got to put a box and some sort of control in there, and then they take care of it, but we have to bring the power to it. Or if they got like a heat pump up in the ceiling or above a window, again, we'll have to bring a pipe over there depending on what size it is. So what I usually do, and again, just because I do it doesn't mean it's right, or, you know, just what I've been doing through experience, and it seems to be working okay. I haven't been fired yet, so I think I'm doing something right. Back into here again. This is great, air handling units up on the roof. I'll do a liquid tight, flex, motor connection. Depending on how big it is, usually they're pretty big. So a 3-phase motor, here's a number 6 with a 3 ground. What this covers is, and a lot of times it'll go from power to the disconnect, and then this covers it from the disconnect into the equipment. And usually it's just a small span, but you can see it's 2 hours and $50 worth of material. If you miss that and you got 10 of them, that adds up real quick. This just covers you. It's got to be done. It's all liquid tight. It's on the roof. And it's kind of nice. It's a pre-assembly, or it's an assembly. You just grab it, you go, and you move on with your life. You can even add your disconnect right here and call it a day. And I'm covered for that.
That's per foot?
This comes with a 3-foot whip, 3-foot flex. There's no...
So if you want just one, you put one there.
Yep. And let's say
if I want 6 feet,
you just change it right here. I would just change 6 feet to here. And let's say I have 10 air handling units up there that are all the same. So I'm covered there. That's 22 hours. If you miss that, you just put a disconnect in there. There you just lost 22. What's 22 times 60? That's a lot of money. Plus $600. So and typically when you come to the drawings, you'll see a motor symbol. That's kind of what I'll dig into it. I'll go to the mechanical plans. It usually be like motor, you know, AHU 014 or something like that. Then I'll go to their schedule and say, okay, it's a 20 amp. Okay, then I know that I just need a toggle switch, or it's, you know, 200 amp or something like that. Then I'm like, oh crap, then I really got to dig into it, and then I got to run a new feed directly to that. So get used to mechanical schedules. It's pretty much all I look at when I look at mechanical, just to know what is what. So that's that. So what else for mechanical? Baseboard heaters, things like that. You have to run power down to there, and then you have to make a termination. This also has the termination in it, and that's making the connection from the wires to their equipment. So that takes time. Let's see what else we got. Uh, bus stock, you guys already, did you guys already take that off? Okay, I don't know if it's in here.
You're separate.
Yeah,
Not covered separately.
I think you're right. Yeah, you can do it in there, or Atom database, you can do it in here, it should be in here somewhere.
Maybe distribution.
Could be, let's see where, there we go.
I couldn't find it here. I think I was looking for it. I missed it.
Everything that's in AccuBid will be under item database. Item database is the coverall. Should be under ducts and trays. Here we go. Wall duct, trench duct for the hospitals. That's big. It's similar to this, but they'll run that. A lot of times we have to saw cut, and it brings into like a MRI machine or something, and then they want it to go up to the ceiling because they have a lot of power down there. Bus duct. Here's your plugs. And I think this should just be the duct itself. Yep. And all your fittings. So you can come through here. And I can add, whatever I want. I know it's 200 feet. There's 290s, Let's see. Yeah, you just start doing it and taking it off there. Another thing you can do, if you know you have bus duct, or whatever it is, temporary assembly. So I'll come up here, and I'll show you that again. It's just in the drop down, very bottom one, temporary assemblies. Click on that. Whatever you're building, you can add it in here. What have I used this for? I've used this for a bunch of different things. And the nice thing about nurse call, for example, we typically will do the rough-in for nurse call, and then I'll hire CMA or somebody to come in and actually device it out. But there was no really assembly. I know that I need a box and some sort of hanger and some sort of bracket, screws, things like that. I'll build it here, call it nurse call dome light. And then what I do, actually Dan did it, and then I always go into his job, steal those temporary assemblies, I just copy them, put them into my job, paste them, and then I can use them there. Because, like I said, we do a lot of work with Alina, so the assembly's the same. He just hasn't entered it into the whole database because only like 3 of us will use them. So it's just easier for us to go in there, copy them, move on with our lives. But here, whatever you want, you can grab ducts and trays. Aluminum. And let's say it's for every 10-foot section we want, a breaker, 30 amp breaker. Again, this is just me throwing stuff together. We know that we're gonna have, joint, whatever it is. Then I build it here and then rename it to whatever you want. And hit OK, now it's there. And I can take that off. If I know I have 10 feet, I can count my sections up. 100 feet, break it by 10, I have 10 of those, and I just click on this. And I have a count of 10. And that covers me there. Bus duct, you see there's no material in it. It's all labor. But again, I don't think I can delete. Maybe I can. So that's temporary assembly. You can do it like that, or you can grab it from the item database, and you just add stuff to that takeoff. What else we got? You're looking for VFDs?
Yeah, I couldn't find the
Okay, let's see.
VFD. We found the levers
Okay.
and the motor control, I think.
Motor control center, distribution. Yep, this is under item database. They probably won't be in assembly. VFDs, or you can use starters. About the same labor.
Yeah. I thought it would be voltage regulators and power supplies are in the middle, but that's where the UPS is.
Yeah. Surge protections. Let's see what else.
So we just take control of an email and as labor, and then it will be material.
Yep. And that's when I first started. I had a PM kind of teaching me. He said, just get something in there that will cover it. You know, a starter is going to be about, you know, what is it, 2 hours or something like that. It's going to be about the same. You might be off by a little bit if you only
Price
have,
will be different, but
right, and you're going to get a quote on that. So, what else? Drop cords, things like that. I don't know if you guys have any built in here. I don't think so. So those, that's a good one. So let's say we have some drop cords. So cord, there's nothing in there. 12.2. Okay, add that. Common assembly. Receptacles, let's go.
so you're adding a drop cord with a receptacle at the end.
Yep, and then what I'll do too is junction box. Say it's right, probably on steel. It's a big box. And then usually there's, let's see.
Or you have to build the cover and the support and the whole thing.
Right, so the first box is for the box at the end with the quad box. Then I have my SO cord up, and then there's going to be another box up there that will tie into the feed. And then there's also, where was I? I can't think of what they're called. The strain reliefs and things like that. You want to throw those in. I think for ours, we have it under cord, and then it's cord accessories. Might be,
Wire and cable accessories, maybe.
yeah, it could be under there. Let's see. Here we go.
Yeah, cord, yeah.
Cord connections, strain reliefs. So whatever, let's say a 3/4 inch knockout. That. I think that was good. Now I built my drop cord. A lot of manufacturers. A lot of manufacturing places, they'll have drop cord, drop cord, drop cord, drop cord. You know, and it's just easier for them because then if they want to remodel, disconnect it, move that drop cord, put another one. You know, you see that quite a bit in industrial or labs.
That'll be similar to what we're doing guys, in our plant, because we have disconnects at the top.
Yep.
Instead of a junction box, it's just a disconnect, and we're tying it from the machine.
Yep, exactly.
So,
Yep, and
so the tape will be plugged into the outlet coming down.
yep, exactly. Instead of putting a box on there with receptacles, you just put a connection in there. So Medical Arts Press, I was just there a couple days ago. They'll have a machine and then they'll have a computer. So the computer, I have to always do a quad box that goes up to the 120. Then they'll have like 480 coming down. And again, I'll do a drop cord from whatever. They have a bus way over there, and usually we tap off the bus, run a feeder over, put my box there, and then I drop SO cord down, and then that connects right to the machine. You know, usually it's like a twist lock. Yep. So you'll see that quite a bit when you get industrial. So yeah, that works. Furniture feeds or poles. I guess I can show you those. Those I don't really get crazy in depth. Again, I just try to. Can't remember if they're in here. No.
Then you have the wire and cable accessories.
Yeah. There's.
And that's what I told them, Joe, is that probably most of the time would be just looking, trying to find what you're looking for.
Right.
So that's the.
And this and our system is AccuBid in itself is the same, but our database is completely different than this one. It's been tweaked over the years. So I'm so good, I'm not saying I'm really good, but I'm so used to it I can navigate my way. But when I first started last year, I would spend half my takeoff just looking for stuff. And if you're really looking for something, go to edit, database find. Now it brings me back to that screen. You know, and this cancel it. Oh, here we go. This is what I'm looking for. You click on that and it'll bring you right to it. Or if I know that's something similar, it'll bring me right in the area. I don't even know what this is, but What else do we have? Poles and stuff like that. Power poles, furniture feeds. I've worked with a lot of guys that just, again, they just know power pole is going to take, an hour and it's going to cost $200. They say put an hour and $200 in there. So what I do is I'll just go like this, temporary item. Power pole, what did I say, $200 or whatever. It's just pulling it right out of my butt. I don't really know. Let's say an hour. Now I have a temporary assembly, and I can take how many off of it. Let's say I got, 12 of those. Or BPI or furniture feed. Let's say they'll say it costs $250, and a guy can knock it out in 0.75. Because we don't even have that in our database, but I'll just plug that in, and it covers me. And then I know I have X amount of furniture feeds throughout the space. Temporary item is good for if you come to unique things. I've used the two where I spent 15 minutes looking for something and I can't find it, so I just make a temporary item. I'm just like, I can't spend any more time on this. Just move on with my life. So that's that. Do you guys have any questions on this portion of the takeoff? I mean, I think the biggest thing is just navigating it. Yeah, just finding, and every company's going to have a different database and how they laid it out.
And Joe, you are not an electrician, right?
No,
Okay,
no.
so you don't, what I found it myself and anybody else does is knowing the hardware that they use, and it will take time learning.
I'm
go to the field,
Yep.
and you say what type of support they're gonna have this picture. It'll have 5-6 supports. You have no idea what type of support. As you go in the field and you talk to the foreman, you'll get familiar with different type of support.
Yep. And great example, I just did a mall job, and they sent back the extra material, and me and another guy who was in the field for like 15 years, now he's in the office, him and I were going through it. He pulled out these little brackets, and to me it was nothing. He's like, these are $5 a piece. And I'm like, what the hell is it for? Well, it's to connect the unistrut, and I didn't realize it's $5 a piece. The guy had a whole box of like 15 of them. That adds up. He bought X amount of them where you could have bought them cheaper. Little things like I never knew what that was before. Chad knew. He's installed them. He can buy this instead next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the biggest thing too. And that's why I like to use common assemblies, because I don't, even to this day, I still don't know every little nut and screw, but if I can use the assembly, it covers it all. And I have good faith that whoever put that together knows what they're doing. Yeah, navigating, knowing what's what, how you need it, that starts coming along, you start learning. Another thing I've been starting to do too, I know we did in class and I kind of just blew it off, but now that I'm growing, I've been doing it more, is I'll grab the books, like wire mold. I'll grab the wire mold book and I'll pull that out and I'll say, well, I don't know what they need. They need a piece of wire mold and it goes like this. Then I thumb through there and I'll go and I'll look, okay, I need an HB, blah, blah, blah. 10 feet of that, I need 2 end caps, I need, and I'll start listing that off, and either I'll build an assembly with that or do a temporary assembly with, how long it's going to take, or I'll ask somebody, hey, how long this will take, an hour, and then I'll get a quote for it, because wire mold can be pretty expensive too. So that's one thing, going to the catalogs, learning. The other thing too, I pick everybody's brain. I don't care who you are, I'll walk right up to the CEO's office and start asking them questions. And that's very important for your guys. I'll tell you this, the senior project managers, they'll act busy and stuff. They love it when you come ask them questions. I swear to God, it kind of boosts their ego, I think, that I can teach them something. You just don't overwhelm them, bother them 24/7, but that's one thing that the feedback I've gotten is, hey, that's awesome, you ask questions. The more questions you ask, the more you learn. The more situations you come across, oh, I've never seen this before. I'll get up, I'll grab my prints, walk over to somebody and say, I've never seen this before, can you tell me? And again, a lot of guys are like, 15 hours. And the other guys would be like, oh, here, show it, and pull out the catalog and show me every little thing that goes along with it. So that comes along. The thing about school, I know you said this a lot, we just teach you the basics. 100% correct. Because when you get into the field, you start learning, and you adapt to how you do it and how your company does it, how you work with your foremans. The more I get along, I'm starting to get a core of electricians that will work with me. I start feeling out how they work and things that they do. And a lot of times I'll call them. A lot of our PMs will have the foremen do the estimates for them out in the field. Call him, he'll write it up. So you start working together as a team. And that comes along with time. And again, it gets back to the guys that have been along, they can look at this and be like, yeah, it's $200,000, without even taking it off, and they'll be spot on. It just comes along. But for us, stick with this because it's got some solid base to it. And then if you ever get in trouble, hey, here's my takeoff. And I've done that before where my boss is like, what the hell? Here's my takeoff. Okay, you're good. So,
Like following the code.
yeah.
If you follow the code, you're not, hopefully, if you get sued, you have a chance
Yep,
of
you
winning.
pull it out, here it is. This is exactly what it said. And so that's the first part of the takeoff. You want to take everything off. So let's say we got everything taken off, right? We've got everything broke down how we want to. We feel comfortable with our estimate. We counted our receptacles, we counted everything. You go into your extension. I always hit this every single time. And the very first thing that I do is I come over to my cost, click on the whole column, and I'll right click it, and I'll sort it extending. So it gives me all the ones with no cost to it to the top. And again, this makes sure that if I thought there was a dollar amount in there for something, but there really isn't, I can catch it. And if I know, hey, these things here are $20 a piece, I know because I just bought a bunch. Right there, yep. And I just kind of skim through. Typically,
So anything that does not have a dollar value here must be quoted.
you got to put a price or a lot of
You
stuff.
put a price, so you have to quote.
Yeah, yep, quote, yep. Or a lot of stuff there is no, for like the nylon pull string for ring and string for the data guys. We don't even have a cost in there for that because it's nothing. It's like 1 penny for 100 feet. So it's not worth it. You can type it in, 0.01. That gives us 4 cents.
Get you rid of that, yeah.
Right. Gets rid of the red, which the red kind of bothers me sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. Typically what I'll see in here when I'm used to, like couplings, I don't think we have a price in for couplings unless they're really big ones. Fixtures, if I build my fixtures, they're not going to pop up here because they're not supposed to. Gear, like if I know I'm going to quote the gear, you guys built your gear, so yeah, you shouldn't have a pricing for that. Now, this is just every individual item. It's not like when you built the assembly, there was a dollar amount. That was all of them tied together. This breaks every little nut and bolt down. So let's say if we took this switch gear off and it came up to $500 and we thought, okay, we're covered. No, that $500 was for the bolts and the washers and everything else. So then you can come in here and be like, oh, thank God I noticed this. This should be an extra $500 or whatever it is. So I do that, and I also do that for, oops, wasn't net cost, it's supposed to be here. Yeah, here we go. Total material. And just verify that's that. Okay, that's right, I shouldn't have a price. That's good, that's good, that's good. And then I also do my labor. Same thing. So you got labor in for everything. A lot of times what I'll see non-labor for is couplings. We usually don't have, we have a cost for material for couplings, but we don't have labor in it. That's what it is. So I'll see 0 on couplings. But then again, I'll double check just to make sure that I didn't miss something or accidentally deleted something, or a lot of weird things happen when you're trying to get 16,000 different things done at the same time. So it's just a quick check. And if you want to zero it out, I always just do like that. Now I'm back to where I was. I can cruise through here, kind of look. Anything that's going to be in blue means you changed it. If you changed it, let's say if we know this is $500, oops, I should be able to lock it. Now what I did there is I just locked that price in. So again, once a month we get an update saying, hey, update your database. Well, let's say I know I got a quote on those and it's going to be $500. But then I need to re-extend my database because we just got some updated pricing. What I do is I go into the extension, I quick double check to make sure I got what needed to be locked, and then I'll just re-extend it. I select all. Yep. And then it gives me the updated price.
So it doesn't miss whatever you put there.
As long as you locked it. As long as you locked it, you're good. But if you knew you were just monkeying around with it and you're just kind of, a lot of times you go in there and kind of tweak this number and that number to see where you're at. and then you just want to re-extend it to get it back, it'll just bring it back to where it was. So I guess if you did delete it, if you re-extend it, it would bring that price back. So I guess I didn't even think about that. Unless we locked it, then we're, you know, same with labor, you can lock the labor in too. So here I just try to quick skim through. You'll run across things that, you know, every job you want to kind of just double check. Fixtures, gear, things like that. You get the feel for it. I would say at first try to spend more time just cruising through everything to make sure it looks right. Direct labor, again, you got the blended rate here.
Okay, we have 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yep.
We'll move to a different topic now. You guys want to have 5 minutes break, a little bit bathroom break, and then we'll, yeah, because that's a completely different topic.
Yep.
And I know we have a limit at 10 o'clock, so, but we have time. So, and,
We'll go with that labor. You have this material here. I can't,
Mhm.
I'll jump in as needed too. So.
So your guys is yours. Do you guys have all this stuff on yours?
you did not, could you please go and make sure your labor reflect, these numbers should be different and this. And make sure you have these numbers. If you don't, go ahead and adjust it, please. Adjust the rate, so we're almost there. So adjust the rate, adjust the burden, and at the end, make sure you guys have this number here, the blended rate, this blended rate. So what I did, Derek, is adjust the labor for you. I think you guys different, so could you please give the format? We give him 40, 34 for the journeyman. Apprentice is 24, make sure you have that number of people. That rate, this is 100%, so it almost doubles them. And you want to end up with 61.5, the blended rate for this project.
Yep. And I see now, ours, we don't have
You
the
guys
burden.
don't have that whole, yeah.
We don't have, that's all buried into this
Yeah,
already.
absolutely.
And
It's
then-
one number.
Yeah, and then we have that, you have to go dig for it. It's off of AccuBid, it's
And
on
they
like
do
a
the same
spreadsheet.
thing, Carson and Hunt do the same thing.
Yep.
Eventually, I might need your help
Mhm.
as we move forward to do it this way.
Yep.
Bury everything in
And
that rate.
So then ours would be here. So instead of seeing the
Yeah.
full rate over here,
Yeah.
this number's transposed to here.
Absolutely.
That's why I was a little thrown off. But yeah, so this is a decent blended rate.
Okay.
And
You
we'll,
guys-
and what we'll have too a lot of times is we'll have the general foreman, you know, a general foreman with the truck. Then we'll have a foreman, a JW with the truck. So there's a ton of them. I think
Yeah.
our list is like this big.
Yeah.
Premium time,
And different rates for different halls and different parts of the country.
yep.
So,
They just changed ours, so now we have a section. So it'll go, so we'll say, let's say our normal guys right here, 292. Then underneath it'll say overtime rates.
yeah.
And then underneath that it's premium rates. Where before it was more like this. So these would be like the 292 guys. These would be the 110 guys. These would be the operators or the 49ers. These would be our low voltage, you know. So they just recently changed it. But what I used to do, and we'll do it here. Let's say for this job, trying to think how I can do this.
Joe, we'll get back to it. Can we just move it to the end of
Yep.
the job so I can get them, if you will click on that
Yep.
indirect, okay. So I'll go erase this one. So what Joe is gonna walk you a little bit through, maybe through a couple of dollars on these areas. So everybody adjust the labor. So let's go, you can just walk quick and see what you typically throw on any of these hour-wise for job setup, sleeves, I don't know. And I'm gonna leave it up to you here.
I typically stay off of this one, but commissioning's a good one. This is where you kind of put in the fill time for little stuff you don't think of. If you have to hire laborers, a truck driver, see, we have our truck drivers in a different spot. As-built drawings, we kind of put those in a different spot. So for us, I usually leave this alone, but I do know a lot of guys will use this and they'll throw different things in there. Commissioning's a huge one for the generators.
Okay.
A lot of times the vendor from the generator will throw that in as quote, but a lot of times it's your responsibility as the contractor, so you have to, well, and even still, even if your vendor's there doing it, you still have an electrician there doing it as well. So I'll kind of keep going because a lot of this stuff I put elsewhere.
Okay.
This one is a big one that I use a lot. Where is it? Work conditions. Experience, job fact. Mine, we have a line that says job factor, and that kind of just covers it across the board. And I think if it's a parking ramp, you know, you're gonna have to have a lift. It seems real simple, but they're actually high, and you're gonna have to move cones around. So I'll throw like 8% in there, and they're almost all the same. As you can see, all the rates are the same. Let's say job location, it's in a really bad location. It's hard to get in. It's gonna cost an extra how many hours per the job to get a guy in and out of there. So that adds us 41 hours just to cover that sort of little stuff. Accelerated schedule, that's a big one. If you know that it's going to be, they're telling you only have like 3 weeks to get a 6-week job done, well, you can add in some, we'll throw in 10% there. And then I always just kind of throw a percentage, you know, and then I kind of look at the hours and gauge, think hospital work, that's a big one. There's always something going on. So for the job factor, usually a hospital, I'll put like 12%, just because to get anything done at a hospital is kind of like pulling teeth. Because, you know, they want to use their space, but they also want you to fix it, but they don't want you around. So it would be like as if this said job factor there. And that's what I typically will just use. And I use it as a kind of like a catch-all. So I'll think about different things. Is it going to be a pain in the butt to get in and out? Is it going to be, you know, hard to get down the corridors? Where do I bring my materials? Do I have to bring it all the way around the block, drop it off, and have a guy walk out there and cart it in, or can I bring it right up with a truck? All that sort of stuff. And I will put that into these different things. And you can change them however you want. Again, it's, you know, you can name them whatever you want. Parking. Parking is, you have to park 2 blocks away, and, you know, your foreman likes to go to his truck on his breaks to smoke his cigarettes or whatever it is. Throw a couple extra dollars in there because he's always 5 minutes late coming back. Whatever it is. So that's a big thing, kind of a catch-all. I kind of just use one. I know I'm working at a manufacturing place. It's kind of tall ceilings, real loud. You got to go through safety orientation. I'll throw 10% into that. And it kind of gives me extra hours, a little flexibility to cover that sort of stuff.
Okay, let's do that then. Let's go back and do 10% on the job location.
Yep.
And get rid of the 2 here.
Oops, sorry.
So if you guys go ahead and do that 110 on job location, and then we'll leave it as is for this project.
Yeah. And again, that comes with experience. You kind of just get the feel of it, how you know how jobs are going to run. Labor escalation, this is a big one. So today is the first day of the new rates for 292. So before that, what I was doing is, just like what you guys are here, we know it's going to be $1 something extra an hour. It's all, everybody knows that. What I usually do then is just say, all right, the job starts here, and I know 2 months of it's going to go into here, so it's going to be 50%. So I'll just put 50% in, and it automatically totals it up for me. That covers their raise.
Can you guys make sure that this line is inserted in first? I think we did it when our hunt was.
Yeah, it's a big one, and you forget about it too. So you want to, I mean, it's only $400, but again, some of these jobs are tight, so $400 can mean a lot. Indirect labor, project manager, you got to think, project managers got meetings once a week. They got phone calls, they got emails. But again, if you're bidding the job, kind of got to be mindful of that. I typically will just do 3%.
3%. Okay.
That's not very many hours. So then I look at it, say, all right, well, I know this job is going to run 2 months, 6 months, whatever. Then maybe I'll bump that up to 25. It's going off $75 an hour, so that covers something. That gives me $2,000 there. General foreman. See, I don't put the general foreman here. I put him in our direct labor. Like I said, we'll have a tab for general foreman. It's whatever. The design engineering, 200 hours. It takes time to get in there and do that, and engineers are expensive. So.
Do you guys have these numbers from before? Everybody has them? These numbers, the under hours? Make sure you have these numbers.
I think you have 150 here. I'll put it back.
Something similar. Let's throw a couple of numbers for this.
Yep.
Control engineer, timekeeper, and all craftsman.
I would say, and ours is broke down different. We have engineering time, we have project management time, we have warehouse time, delivery time, things like that. Warehouse and delivery, I put into here because every time they go, my foreman calls the back to have them send out the tools or material. I get dinged on that on my jobs. So that's where I throw in, and usually it's like 40 bucks an hour. So we could do like WHR. Oops, I'm really bad at spelling, so I'm just gonna warehouse. And we'll say for a job like, I don't know how big this total job is, but we'll say compared to these other numbers, we'll say 50 hours at 40 bucks an hour. That covers my warehouse guys. Because I mean, every shop is different. Some of those guys are considered overhead. Ours are separate. So we have to make sure we put that in there. Otherwise, that's 2,000, you know, or how much money that is. $2,000. So it's quite a bit of money. Project manager, estimating time. If I know I'm estimating for somebody, I'll throw, if it takes me 4 hours to do an estimate, I'll throw 4 hours into it. And then if we get the job, then I backtrack and grab my 4 hours back. You know, and then I put time in for the project manager. What else do I put in there? The engineer, if we have to have them look something over, and again, they're expensive. You don't want to miss them. So this one I use quite a bit, throwing those. I'll monkey around with the percentage, and then I'll see what the hours are. Typically, what I do is I go to direct labor. We're only at 512 hours. So we're almost right there with just office hours. And again, if it's tight bid.
Well, we're not there for the takeoff yet.
Yeah. But this, I mean, this is design build, so this makes sense, the 200 hours here, because your engineer's designing it. Whereas a lot of times we'll just have something small in there, or if it is a design build, we do have to punch those numbers in. Subs. Big one I run into, low voltage, nurse call, you know, fire alarm, nurse call, cutting, saw cutting. Oops. Saw cutting's a big one. Directional boring, now that it's getting nice outside. Throw in some dollars there, and that's all, you're getting a quote from them. When you get the quote, just like here, so ABC, yep, just like this. Let's say you got two quotes, one is 10,000, one's 9,500. Yep, you want to pick that. You can just hit low price and it'll automatically click it. This ellipsis, make sure you put it in the right area. So we didn't want none on the alternate, so that's right, 100% there. Phone and computer, yeah. You can leave this blank if you want. It depends on how you want your price broken down. Usually mine's base bid and alternate, so I'll just double check that to make sure it's broke down correct.
We'll add something for the excavation if you.
Yep.
So I have 10 grants for the excavation if you guys want to work, so.
So let's do best.
Yeah.
He's $10,000.
And just throw all the numbers.
Let's say 12.5.
So if you guys can add these one for the excavation. And pick the lowest, is that what we do?
Yep, I'll let him type it in and then. You can either click the button and then click OK, or you just click lowest, and then it'll automatically do it for you.
Okay, so that's what we're gonna add.
So I just hit low price, we're good. And I want to make sure, yep, I'm going to say that's 100% on my base bid. I don't know if you guys want to do
That's fine. I mean,
yeah. You can monkey around with it. Again, however you want to break your price down, that's how you do it.
we also have invisible with the.
You have lightning protection too, right?
We got lightning protection. We have 10 grants too.
10? Okay.
So.
Okay, then we'll say, yeah, we'll just do one. Low price.
And allocate to the bid spread.
Yep. And you can do dollars or percent. I like to do percentage. Yep.
30,000, yeah.
And then 100% on the base bid. If you need, so go back to the ellipsis. So we'll go right to lighting protection, click on this ellipsis, and then you'll see it right here, base bid.
Just type 100%.
Yep.
Do that for the other ones too.
Yep.
And Joe, if you go ahead and get rid of the data, because the data we want to take off the data, so.
You you include that in the takeoff then, click the takeoff, or just put it as 100% and that's it?
For the allocation.
Yeah,
Okay, so I click on this. This is back on lightning protection.
yeah,
And then I go to, I'm breaking it down by bid item.
yeah.
So I click on that. And then I just type in 100% right here.
Oh, and I was just checking to see if it, for whatever reason, why they didn't include the takeoff, so,
Yeah.
okay,
And then, yeah, if this wasn't clicked or something.
yeah.
All this is doing is saying 100% of this cost is going towards that breakdown. If you don't have any breakdowns, this doesn't matter. Or if you have 16 different breakdowns, you know, you go through here and you start picking those out. So we want to delete this.
Yeah, will you delete the database, guys? If you delete that one, please.
Let's see.
So just go. I think it's allocated to something maybe.
There you go.
Okay, so the data communication, guys, we're gonna be doing, we're gonna be taking it off, so make sure that's zeroed.
Yep.
These are the only subcontract things that we're gonna do. I believe that's what we did. Anything else, Joe? I don't know, that's what we did.
No,
We did
dirt
excavation and lighting.
work and lightning is big
Yeah.
for a building like this. Because if it's a brand new building from the ground up, you don't need a saw cut because everything's, you can lay it all in before they pour it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is fine.
Did you guys update that one?
You might have Excel Energy on here, maybe, you know, for them to terminate their power into years. Sometimes they'll charge you, there's certain rules, and you got to just talk to Excel.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll cover all the costs, sometimes they want to get you for it. General expenses. All right. Again, ours is wrote different than this. I always do consumables. So what I do for consumables is I do extension total material, so $2,000, and I do 3% of that. Basically what that does is everything you take off that goes into the extension, it's taking 3% of that total dollars, and that's to cover gloves, safety glasses, just tape, weird things like that that you don't think of. Yeah, well, screws will be separate because that'll be on the takeoff. This is little consumables are things that they throw away. So for another one that for us, consumables from the warehouse. So like if I'm going to do a bunch of core drills in an existing space, they'll charge me for a vacuum cleaner because when it gets back to them, it's shot and it's ruined. So they charge me $80 for a vacuum cleaner, whatever it is. So there's that. Small tools, again, that's for my warehouse. I want to make sure I put that in here. You have 3%. Or if you know, this is off total hours, you could do that too. What I usually do for small tools is I kind of know, this is a big job, so it might be a little bit harder. For my smaller jobs, I know, okay, I'm going to have 3 hammer drills. I'm going to have a couple ladders. I'm going to have this or that. I'll just do quantity 1 and then throw a cost in there, $500, and that covers me. The permit's a big one. Permits are tricky depending on what city you're in. If you're in St. Paul, it's like $45 and $5 per circuit. It's $5 per circuit, minimum $45. If you are in Plymouth, it's total cost. The first $1,500 or the first $50,000 is $1,500, and then after that, it's a certain percentage. It gets really tricky, so you got to make sure you talk to whoever does your permits. They'll look it up. They'll tell you what it is, and then you plug in that number there. So what I'll do is I'll just do quantity of 1. Let's say this permit's $1,500. Temporary power, that's a big one. On ours, we have it broke down with wobble lights, turtles, things like that. Again, some guys want to know exactly. I want 9 lights on my job. Some guys are just throw 1, throw $500 at it. Not probably as little light. Throw $1,000 at it. It's a big space, so you're going to have a lot of turtles and extension cords and that kind of covers the lights and everything. You can break it down if you want to do 500 here and 500 for lighting. It's totally up to you. Again, like ours is really broke down. I haven't had to do this, the site office, but that when I was out at Madison, because we're doing the lighting portion, Industrial Controls is doing the whole space. So they got a guy out there. He's got his own trailer, so here they would put the cost for that trailer in. So here it comes in a cost. Like again, ours are wobble lights and stuff like that. We've already got costs allocated in there that we know that's what the warehouse is going to charge us for it. So a site office is a pretty big job. You might have a site office. We'll throw one in there. And there's a space for your foreman to go, or sometimes they don't want you in the building. Sometimes they do. Just depends on it depends on what's going on with that. Travel expenses per diem. That's another big one. If you know if you're gonna have guys going out there, you got to be very careful of the unions and how that all works. You know, if you know it's gonna cost $150 a night for a hotel room, plus or they do like $25 per meal, 2 meals a day or something like that. You got to make sure you figure that all in. If it's only going to be one guy, it's kind of easy to quick do the math, plug the number in. Here they have 45 cents. So this one I would say do per hour. That gives you $230. That seems pretty light, but maybe you got a guy coming in from out of town and you got to pay him that extra money. But that's that. Consumables I always use, permit I always use, and then the tools and temporary power 50-50. These are things that, I've seen them. Travel expenses, a site office, I've seen them. I haven't had to do them again, but again, I do a lot of smaller jobs. So then we'll go to equipment. Wire puller, so you got that in there, a tugger, so that's good. We already got a guy doing excavation, so we don't need none of this, the backhoe or nothing like that. But one thing that here's a power saw. See, and again, it's broke down. People do it differently. Some people will put it here. I figure that in as my tool rental on the previous tab. The big one that I use here is a lift. And I'm not seeing a lift. Here we go. Almost every job needs a lift. Let's say this is a pretty big job. We'll say 4 lifts. You can do a duration, 50% of the job. I always just figure the whole job they're going to have the lifts there. It makes the electrician's life easier. They're happier. Just throw the dollars in. Let's say it's $450 per lift. And then I have a delivery charge. Oops. Again, don't judge me for my spelling. So Beaupre charges me, I have 4 of them. They charge me, I think it's $90. Drop off and pick up every lift. So that covers there. If you need cranes or anything like that, real big jobs, I say lift's the big thing. Throw in the money, it will save you on labor rather than having a guy going up and down a ladder. It's worth $1,800. Sometimes. Sometimes the job is only electrical and they want you to cover all that, or sometimes you have to carry, let's say, a big transformer or something like that, and the general contractor doesn't have one. I mean, you can work it out down the line, but you can always throw a dollar in here for it, just to make sure you're covered. So it's not a bad idea.
What these help as a project manager here is give you a checklist. When you estimate your project and you go meet with, I don't know, like the people who got the projects for you or the general contractor or whatever, that will be your checklist. Is this covered? Yes.
Yep.
Is this not covered? Who's covering it?
Yep.
And then you can add it. So.
And a lot of times they don't want you using their equipment. For liability reasons. We won't let anybody use our lifts because if they fall off, then we get sued. So nope, if we have a subcontractor, we tell them, you get your own lift. You're not touching ours. Now what happens in the field? I don't know. But project manager, hey, you get your own, we got our own. If the 2 foremen get together, screw it, just use mine. I don't want to hear about it. Just don't get hurt. One of those type of things. But you're absolutely right. You go through, hey, we're gonna need to, fork this big switchgear in. It's got to go, 300 feet. Do you guys got something we can use here? And a lot of times they'll be like, yeah, no big deal. We'll just throw it on our skid and bring it down for you. But sometimes they're nitpicky and they don't want to. So that all covers that. And if you know you're going to use it a lot, you put it in there. Golf cart for big job sites. Arden Hills, I think they had a couple golf carts out there for that because there's a huge space and they're going back and forth. Yep, and that saves rather than have a guy walk. His foreman is going around picking up material. You could load up the material in the golf cart and drive back. It's funny. You're like, oh, I wish I had a gun. They use it. Generator, that's a big one too. If you need A lot of times if we're shutting down like air handling units and this might fall into mechanical, or they might ask you to cover it, temporary power, things like that. You might need to bring in a small generator. If you're going into a space that's being used, but you're redoing it, but they want their freezers still operating, you might have to bring a generator, hook that up, just to keep that going while you kill the power for everything else. So this is a good thing you go through, and that goes back to reading the specs, knowing what's part of the job, what they expect from you. It's a checklist too on that. Yeah, so we already got this pretty much covered. Quota materials. You guys are doing your own fire alarm, or are you?
No, we're taking it off.
Okay.
Some of the stuff is a coated material. Actually, the material is coated off.
Okay. So I'll just add all this in here.
Yeah, if you guys want to follow with the coated material, we have a bunch of this. Here, Joe is gonna walk you through it.
And if I go too fast, just tell me to pump my brakes. I'll slow down. So we'll start with the lighting. We have Gray Bar, we have Wesco, and GE. It doesn't really matter. Here it doesn't show who we use.
Yeah, just put the makeup number in there.
Yep. We'll just say 90 grand for this one. And we'll say 105 for this one. Oops.
And pick the lowest.
Yep. Click lowest. Allocated. Sure. Yep.
So these are the quotes that you get from different vendors, guys, and like we did with everything else, you pick the lowest,
Mm-hmm.
or you don't have to pick the lowest.
Right.
In this case, we'll pick the lowest.
Yep.
We are allocating it to the best bet, and we're moving. We're gonna do the same thing for all of them.
Yep. You just hit the lowest, move on, allocate it right away so you don't forget.
We're gonna allocate 100% to the best bet.
Yep.
We don't.
Distribution. We're gonna buy all of our stuff from Gray Bar. They really like us this week. Oops.
We have 200,000 for that.
And we'll say these guys are
The number is easy to do.
220.
So you have two beds and you choose the lowest of the two.
Yep.
And what we did with these one guys is at one point, I think we got some codes with some of these materials. So in real life, you're gonna send them to 3 vendors, and we get the 3, put them in, pick the lowest.
Yep.
So we're saving you some time for this particular project.
Yep.
You still can send it to us for you and get the material.
What's that? No, not yet. Just click lowest. We're gonna allocate it.
Allocate it 100% to the.
Generators, we're at 400,000. Oops. JVC.
So these are our 2 gens for almost $500,000. And we'll pick the lowest.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the explanation. That's DEF.
ABCDEF. Just alphabetical.
I just you can put ABC. Can you make the first one CAT? CAT.
Yep.
Yeah, that's because they're common. And the other one is common. CU. How do you spell common?
Something like that. OG.
So that's more realistic.
Yep.
Thank you.
Again, I click low price.
And we allocate them.
Yep.
100%. Okay.
Fire alarm.
Fire alarm. And that will be fire alarm, guys, for the equipment, not the installation. We still have to take fire alarm just to get the installation stuff. So this is just for the major stuff, the
Yep.
fire alarm panel and the fire alarm annunciator and the pre-activation panel. You still have to go there and take these as a labor only. Next week, like I said, low voltage, we're gonna be doing that.
Yep.
That will take the wires and little devices and the labor only for the major equipment. So
Yep. And a lot of times too, we get like I said, we will sometimes do the labor, but we'll have to price it out, and a lot of times then too they add in them coming back to commission it or make sure it's good. Or a lot of times, some places they can only sell us the material, or they can only install in this building because they're notifier dealers and it's a simplex building. It gets kind of tricky.
Yeah.
I just let the fire alarm guys tell me what they need, and they so
let's do a simplex, yeah.
simplex.
Silent Night does it.
Yep. Spell that.
Who's more spelling here? Where's Karen?
Silent Night.
You think it's just night, like Canaan?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a kid in that one. Yeah, they do it.
Yep. They do a lot of and it could be too where you're quoting the whole thing out and they're doing everything.
Yeah, and then we'll do a subcontractor.
Yep.
What we're doing.
Oh, this is quotes. Okay, yeah, yeah.
This is
Yep,
quotation,
yep.
okay.
So we'll say 20
So
grand.
we are doing the low voltage guys, but we're just quoting the material.
Yep.
Lowest price and allocated. Is it making sense, guys? Does it make sense what we're doing? Adding all this stuff, so that's why I wanted to help you the other day, and I found Joe would be smarter than me to do that.
So security, this could be
Simplex does security too.
Yep.
Okay, Simplex. And I don't know who else does security. ABC?
ABC's a good company. So we're gonna say 10 grand. Again, this is like you said, just the material, so
Yep, this is material only.
we'll say 15. Pick lowest and allocate it.
Okay. You can see, start getting the revenue back.
And you want me to keep going with the
Yeah, can you
okay.
add these? Thank
Yep.
you, sorry. There's a bunch of other things that we added, guys. We have the phone and data. Wow. And just for company, just put anything, A company, B company, or
Yep.
something, so it make it easier. EU.
So and I'll shift this over so you can keep seeing that.
What are you doing?
I'll just do for these vendors, I'll just do one
Okay,
just to save time.
yeah.
I wonder if I can do this. Yeah, I can.
Same thing all in the ABC whatever. So these are what you get quotes for different materials and allocate them. Well, this we can see, at least where that's the.
You can get that from anybody. Gray bar, border states.
Yeah. And when you do the quotes, you can either get them from the vendors or you can get them from the manufacturers.
Yep.
So sometimes you might go to somebody direct and buy the equipment.
Yep.
You might.
We go to Davis a lot directly for lights. Work with Matt Shyness down there quite a bit. And then he'll just tell us whatever vendor, Gray bar, whoever. And they're kind of just the middlemen at that point, and he's already given us a price. And
Were you guys able to put all this stuff here? So the coated material is almost $500,000, almost $1 million, just the material. And you can appreciate, I'm sorry, I'm jumping into, you guys can appreciate why we go and coat this material. That's a lot of money. All your takeoff wire might not get close to this even. You know, so it's a lot of money to go take off. You need to negotiate a price, this price for it. That's a reason why we go quote these big equipments, big dollar value equipment.
I think everything I've done so far was like just under 300,000.
Yeah, so that's normal. A generator will be more than one generator will be more than all your copper and wire and conduits.
Yep. I'm putting a 600 kW generator right over in Plymouth, and it's $200,000 just for the generator.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the rest of my labor materials only another extra 100,000 on top of that.
Yeah. You wonder why condoms are so heavy.
So just let me know when you guys are ready.
That's what I wanted to be able to guys walk me through it. How Joe would be able to walk me through these ones too.
And again, the best, like I was saying earlier, especially for lights, when I get all my quotes in, I'll try to put them on like a spreadsheet or just lay them out in front of me and just go line by line and verify that everything's on the same page. We're all talking about the same stuff.
Yep.
When it gets into some of this data stuff, security stuff, they might use different materials, but you can still kind of skim through, and this one might call it, you know, XYZ piece, and this might be, you know, W something or else. But you can say, all right, I know I got 10 of them, he's got 10 of them, all right, we're good. And you kind of just go down the list, making sure that everybody's on the same page so it's even. And if something is off, I like to give the vendor the benefit of the doubt, give them a call, hey, you're not driving here, can you take a double look at it? And they'll be like, oh, thanks. They appreciate that, you know, because it's going to happen where you screw up too. It's better to be you don't want to ever get to where the vendors don't like you. You know. So that's all of that. Let's see. We already went through subs, so yeah. Yep. So a lot of times too, instead of quoting materials for, let's say, fire alarm, because you guys are going to install the fire alarm, but let's say if you don't have fire alarm at your company, you won't even put anything here, you'll just put it all under subs, because they'll give you one price for labor and material. Yep, and then you would just put all that right there. Same with data, same with security, said nurse call, controls, there's a lot of stuff in there. Building automation is a big one. So that's all that. Quotes is the big thing. You want to get all that, and right away you get your counts, and you send that stuff off immediately, because it takes them time to put their stuff together, and you want to make sure you get that back. Typically, the lighting reps won't send it to you till about like an hour before your bids due. But I mean, there's been times where I'm at open bids and people are penciling stuff in because they're getting calls, and it's kind of a fun game. But so now we're down to our final price. This is way more than what I do, but a lot of people do this because you can allocate how you want your money broke down.
This is not with the square foot, right?
No, not yet. That's the next one.
Overhead.
Yep, taxes in here, material escalation, that's a good one if you know.
Yeah, did you guys put the taxes? Taxes 7.775. If you put your taxes, labor taxes 0, nothing.
Yep.
So
You can only tax labor, I think if it's maintenance stuff. They just changed it last year. I think if it's maintenance work, we have to tax it. But if it's like new construction, then it's not taxable. But then if it goes into maintenance, I think if it's lamps and ballasts, you don't tax it. I could be wrong. It's really confusing.
and total overhead, if you look at the overhead here, percentage weighted total overhead, I don't know if that's calculated or
Yeah.
inserted value.
What I do is usually, ours is set up so it's just 10 and 5. So
Can you put that one there somewhere, overhead? I think that's probably,
did you punch these numbers in?
I can't, no, I don't know if they're calculated. So I will find a place where you can put an overhead of 10 and 5.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it like this. total overhead, let's say 10%,
So 10% over here.
and then my markup 5%.
So the markup will be the profit, right?
Right.
Okay, so will you be able to change these? 10% for adjustment overhead and markup 4%.
And then these ones here, when you're in these, let's see here. Right here, how you have 4% all the way down for overhead,
Yeah.
and you have 3% of markup. That's where these numbers are coming from.
Okay.
So if you have them at 0 and you just factored bottom dollar, it'll take the 5% here. But what this is saying is you've already got your 4% marked up on there. And I mean, everybody does this differently. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll just mess with my percentage right here and delete this, and I'll have all this stuff zeroed. If it's a real tight bid, you might be at like a 4% total. Some guys like to bury stuff up in here, put like how it was. A lot of guys like to put stuff up in here. And then a lot of times too, if you know you're gonna do a round number, so let's see, this is 0.18. Now we're at, $1,193,075 instead of $74.82.
So you can adjust it. Yeah.
So then when I write my letter, I'm going to write it with this total on it, and then I save it. And then if I, 6 months later, I come back to it, I can look and be like, oh, okay, that's why I'm 18 cents high or whatever. It might be a couple bucks or whatever. And I just like to have an even looking number, something that looks nice. You don't want cents and stuff like that. So then, and this is pretty much all I do. I just make sure if you're doing anything for the hospitals, they're typically tax exempt, so you'll delete that off of there.
Oh, yeah.
And then again, like I said, I typically will leave it at 10 and 5, and then I kind of just monkey around depending on what kind of job it is. If it's a real quick in and out, I might put 20% on it just in markup and just leave everything else 0. If it's just a quick couple-hour job, that's just kind of how the business works. So this is where you put here's your square footage right here.
Make sure the square foot is, I think we did that one, 25,000.
25,000, so that's telling you it's $47 a square foot. That's huge. That's really big when you get into like our estimating group uses that a lot. Because a lot of times they come up with budgets for, and Warrenson will call them and say, hey, can you give us a budget on this 16-story condo or whatever it is? And they'll say, okay, what's the total square foot? Plug it in, compare it to what they've done in the past. I know that Mortensen, when they get our numbers, that's what they do. They have a whole database of square footages of manufacturing places, hospitals, whatever it is, and then they can look and say, okay, for the last 5 years, we've been doing jobs that are about the same square footage, and it's about X amount of dollars a square foot. So a lot of people use it. We've used it before. It's a lot more for budgeting. That's just kind of nice, because then you can look at it and think back, say, okay, well, we just bid another job similar to this last month, and we're at $43 a square foot. So do you think I can tweak that number down to get it down? Or is that job looking like I was too low and I should be more at 47? This is more of just like kind of a gauge to see where you're at. And then when you go do the review with your manager, he can look at it, he or she, they can look at it and say, that seems about right, or whoa, what's going on here? That's way too high.
Derek, what's your number here? This is your selling price, basically. That's the major thing. What's your number?
I'm a little lower than about
1,000?
well, closer to 100 right now, but I haven't finished
Okay,
my stuff yet, so yeah.
okay.
Mostly because I'll set it, I'm just used to setting, like I'll get everything set up. And
Yep.
and come back for
Yep.
finish return.
Yep. Yep.
I'm not ignoring you, Joe.
No, it's okay.
What Joe was talking about, guys, there is something called the RS means, and that's what the general contractor use. In these RS mean books, and they're updated, they find if you have a hospital, like you said, they have a dollar value per square foot for a typical hospital, and they use it for budget.
Yep.
So, and then here's another multiple of them. This is electrical cost. per square foot and square foot cost for different disciplines.
Yep.
So I wanted to, I'll keep here just for show and tell for us, but obviously we won't teach you that one, that's a general contractor.
Yep.
So this number, like Joe said, becomes so important, because when you give them, when you do your real estimate, they compare it with RS means, and they keep updating that RS means, you know. So you don't want to be too far away from what RS means
Right.
did, because they collected so many hospitals and so many
Yep.
buildings.
Yep. And it's good for you too. A lot of times we get calls, they can quick give us a budget number in 12 hours. And instead of us, you know, we'll thumb through and kind of get an idea, but then we'll do the square footage, plug it in, and we got a running list too. It's not very in depth. And we'll say, oh, okay, it's about X amount of dollars per square foot for this type of building, and shoot it over to them. And they go, thanks. Typically, all that is then they go to the owner and say, this is roughly what it's going to be. And then it builds from there. And then once they get it narrowed down exactly what they want, then they'll ask you to rebid it. And that's when you get in depth. But yeah, I know for a fact Mortensen does that, and that's how they do all their.
Yeah, general contractor look at the RS means a lot.
And then they'll tell the owner, we're going to get you an electrical number that's going to be right here. And then we quote it or give them an estimate, and then the battle begins. Because they want to get, you know what I mean? So it's another fun game that we get to play. I like it. I don't know.
And that's where negotiated work is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you guarantee that you're going to get the job, then you can go tweak your numbers and get rid of all the risks that you fill into it, and lower this from 47 down to 37.
Yep.
If you know you're going to get the job.
Yep.
And you know who the contractor is. We talked about lift. If you can use their lift, if the general contractor is working with you, there's a lot of factors that you can tweak your numbers.
Yeah, and the more you work with one, you build kind of a relationship. You know how they operate. They know how you operate. And that's why you see Parsons works with Mortensen a lot. We're slowly starting to work. I know Mortensen and Egan stopped working together, I think like 5 or 6 years ago, and we're starting to swing back around with them. But it's you build that relationship. You guys know how you work. It's great. And that's same with us for, like I said, I work a lot with direct to owner, so similar thing. Their maintenance guys kind of have a budget in their head. I don't know if they use these, but then we kind of work together. So yeah, it's important to have this, and it's a good gauge too when you're doing your estimate. You can sit down and say, mall build out. So I went over to Ken, who sits right behind me. He's, you know, probably a year or two away from retirement, so he's been doing this for a long time. Hey Ken, I'm at $30 a square foot for this building at the mall. Perfect. You're right there. He doesn't even have to look at the prints. He just knows that's a tenant build out. That's what it should be. So it helps quite a bit. And then the breakdown. Oh, I deleted that. Here, let me go take something off in there again, just to show you. Let's go, oops. So our breakdown here, if you have red down here, that means you missed one of the allocations. You just go back and double check it. Because it'll say like the grand total, it's kind of hard to see, but the final price, yeah, it's really hard. You can't really see it here, but, and I don't know why. Here it is. So say the final price, there'll be a number here that's in red. $20,000 or whatever it is. Oh, well, I forgot to allocate whatever it is. And then you fix that, and then it will readjust it. But that's taking this total plus this total to get your total here. This is a good one, too. I like to go in here and kind of just skim through everything, right? $75,000 in labor, $20,000 in subs, $3,500 in expenses, $2,500 in equipment, so on and so forth. There's my markup. This is one that I always look at, is how many hours I'm going to be at. That kind of, then I can kind of think of the schedule. Is that going to fit into the schedule? I'm sure they talked about that, where you can put, you put it in here and it'll tell you the duration. So you know, all right, I have 6 months to do it. Go back to your breakdown. I think we're at like 600 hours or something like that. Calculate it out. All right, yeah, that fits into it. Or I'm way under. I must have missed something. You know.
And these hours for your crews, so you're gonna
Yep.
divide them by 8 times how many people. I think we had a
Right.
foreman, 6 people.
Yep.
3 apprentices and 2 journeymen and a foreman.
Yep.
So,
And that's one thing I wanted to quick. I mean, we got a few extra minutes here. Overtime. So here, OT. We'll just say, I don't know, one guy. This is just a rough estimate. Let's say we're gonna. Ooh, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry. You can either do the crew, and it's gonna say 1. And it's gonna take. It will only take your total hours. Let's say we know we're gonna have one weekend of shutdown, 8 hours a person, whatever that is. So let's say 24 hours. Your total labor hours is still the same. It's just pulling 24 hours out of these evenly, and we'll say, I don't know, what, $140 roughly, for premium time. And this, again, you can do it by crew. You can say 3 guys, your blended rate there of premium time, and that'll calculate it out too. Or you can just figure 8 hours a guy, I got 3 guys, X amount of days is going to be 24 hours of overtime total at $140 a pop. That's $3,300 in overtime. It's one thing that can easily get overlooked, and it adds up quick. If you have a lot of jobs want shutdowns on the weekends, and it's pretty expensive. So I don't think you guys. This is a brand new building, so there's really nothing there. So I can just go back and delete this. You guys have any questions?
Joe, do you use a graph for any representation? You don't use it.
The only time I've seen it is when you popped it up.
Do you remember?
No, even I went to an AccuBid class. From AccuBid flew in and taught us.
I wonder what they have in there.
I don't know.
Because there's so many graphics that get pulled out of it.
Yeah, I don't
Divides it if you're doing a presentation or something.
suppose. Yeah, maybe even like my only thought is if you're going to present it, like you said, to the owner, whoever.
Owner, visually see what comes, right?
But typically this stuff, you won't show anybody this. I don't know if you got change order on here. Probably not.
Before we go there, can you just one time if you go find a job print so they can see what they're going to print?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because for me, so job and print. And this is what you're going to be printing. Click on all these icons at the bottom. Yeah, make sure that everything is good.
You want all of them
down, if they have breakdown, yep.
Okay.
Anything they can get, yep. And then just preview it. And that's the file they're going to print. They'll print every single, for me anyway, not for you. Yeah, for me, they'll print everything, the single things that you've done. Everybody okay with that? At the end, that's what you're going to submit to your friend Chad.
So here's my preview of
So
it.
that's your preview, and I think there's a lot of pages.
Yeah.
So.
Next page.
Go through, I
Yep.
think it's like 50, 60 pages.
And it's basically just what you. Why? This ain't right.
I don't know if you click on all of them, but yeah.
Preview. They're all clicked.
Good.
Extension complete. Should be everything.
Go, okay. Next thing. Should be able to go here.
That's where it stops. I don't know what's going on here.
What I usually do, I don't go on this, I go into the job first. Maybe, I don't know if it has to do with it.
Default style extension.
Go default style. That's it.
There you go.
I think default style, yeah.
That looks more right. You can see there's a lot more into it. So again, this is just the beginning of it. Here's your total hours and stuff. Then it breaks down. Here's your audit trail right here. Type C, type A, type B. So those are those fixtures that you took off. Here's a transformer.
All the stuff that you have taken, you guys will be printed, basically.
And a lot of people want to print it off because people like to hold stuff in their hands and they look at things. It's basically going through all the tabs electronically, but now on paper. So let's see if we can skip ahead. So here's our general expenses and stuff. Here's lightning protection, temporary power, small tools, and it's only grabbing what we selected. And it gives us our total. Here's our final pay, or our total cost, material escalation, our material tax. Here's our overhead, our markup. Here's our final selling price. This is that one where it showed the square footage right here. I don't know what this one is. Yep, this is the breakdown.
If you haven't done the breakdown, you wouldn't see it.
Yep, because here's our base bid, our alternate. The only thing I don't like about this is when they run out of room, they jump down to the next line,
Yeah.
and it gets kind of confusing. What I've been trying to do is I put it on the 11 by 17, so I kind of tweak it so it's all on one big line, so you can just go right across it and see. 'Cause otherwise, it gets too goofy. For me, it does when it's just yeah, just for the breakdown, because then it puts it all on one line instead of, because usually it'll be like you know, here's alternate, here's base, and then it jumps down here, and you kind of get a little confusing. And when you have, you know, this many breakdowns, it gets really confusing. Yep.
And the proposal, guys, at the end, you'll have a proposal populated with the information populated into it.
Yep.
Should populate
Well, this, it looks like you have to, oops.
And you guys will fill this information to and what's not. I think the price should be populated. Go next page, right?
Let's go. I haven't used this, but I remember we did in class, and I thought it did too.
Yes, sir. I think we'll pick a different proposal. If you close it, pick up the proposal, I think it will do it. I think it depends which proposal you defaulted to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oops.
So that's basically does the whole estimate when you're done with takeoff. It's really not a whole lot to it. So make sure you print the sheet too, just for your check, because it looks good.
These things up here, this goes if you really want to start getting technical and breaking things down. We did a job not too long ago with our AccuBid Guru. I had to pull it up yesterday to look something up. I think it overcomplicates things because you can start breaking things down all sorts of different ways. But then if you want to go back and relook at it, it gets tough because you're like, oh God, we bid this 8 months ago. I don't remember what I did.
Yeah.
So I try to keep it simple. Keep it as simple as I can. Go through. If you are going to make temporary items or assemblies, try to leave a little description in there of what it is. Because again, you might not go back to this bid again for another year from now. And there, you know, the chances of you remembering every little detail is very slim. So it's, if you see, oh, you write a little note on your temporary item, this is for this on page whatever, and then it kind of rings a bell. Oh yeah, okay, that's why I did that. It just helps. So there's a lot more all this stuff, but I think for the most part, most people just take stuff off, go through the tabs like we just did, and they're just fine.
The more, this is my second year doing that, AccuBid.
Yep.
I thought to believe that it's easier than code.
Oh yeah, it's just like a spreadsheet. Yep. It's finding things. I use the database. Well, I don't much anymore, but when I first started, I used. If you want to use a database find, you have to be clicked in over here. Database find, and just type whatever you want to type in there. You can look for items only or assemblies. You know, whatever it is that you're looking for, that will help a lot. And again, you find now, and 10 items pop up, and you're still kind of confused. You can start clicking on them. It'll bring you to that general area, and then from there you can kind of navigate your way around.
And the expectation Joe was in this class last year, and you were working before even when you were in my class. The expectation when you go to a work is you know how to use the software. So that's really the expectation. Now, getting deeper into it, it's going to be you go to different training and you start. Make sure you contact the foreman and electricians to explain to you different type of hardware they use, so you can pick them up. So like everything else, you need to put a couple of years until you become a really good estimator.
Yeah, don't be scared to ask questions. That's the big thing. Because I've heard that from a lot of guys. Just they don't ask enough questions. And
Any questions for Drew? Any questions? So,
and if you guys are going on and you're starting to take stuff off and you just run into a question, just give me a call. Call my cell phone. I've always got that on me.
we have this, tomorrow guys, we're going to Egan to tour what they're doing professionally. And we have next week and the week after, we have 2 full weeks to finalize the 3 project. So we have a lot of time really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
How long will it take you to take really project like the one that, you're familiar with that one professionally? How long, if you would
To take this whole thing
Yeah,
off.
the whole thing off.
Not to butcher on the spot here.
If that's all I had to do, it wouldn't take too long, but give it a week or so.